WPGet. Get found. Real people, real solutions.
Okay, with this video, I'm going to show you how to choose fonts to use on your website for headings, for body copy, for buttons, all that sort of stuff. The general thinking at WPGet is that we advise people to always use either standard web fonts, which are the old style fonts like Arial, Verdana, Times, etc., or to use Google fonts. Now, the reason we recommend Google fonts is, or the reasons I should say, is one is that there are a lot of them. They are open source, free, so you can use them on your website, on print media, so magazines, business cards, signage, all that sort of stuff. There's no licensing issues with using them. The page builders that you get on websites like WordPress will usually have support for Google fonts. So you can just select them from a drop-down list, which I'll show you. So there's no need to upload your font files in the right formats and include them in the right way and worry about whether you got licensed or not. Go to the page builder and then you select the name of the font you want and you're done. So it's so much easier. What I'm going to do is show you how to decide what fonts you're going to use. Now this is going to depend on obviously what kind of site you're building, whether it's for example, a wedding website, you might use some very old style cursive fonts. If it's a technology site, you might use some very simple fonts like Arial, Open Sans, things like that. Or if you're a bit of a arty site, you might use some more fancy looking fonts, which we'll have a look at. So to get started, you've got to decide what fonts you actually want to use. So I'm going to quickly show you how to use fonts.google.com, and then I'll come back to our demo site and show you how to actually use that on your website with Elementor. So if we head over to fonts.google.com, just get rid of this extra stuff on here. So you head over to fonts.google.com and you get the default settings. Now, depending on what you're looking for, you might type a heading in here. So my business name, for example. If this is a heading, you might want to see what it looks like nice and big. So maybe drag that along. It'll show you a whole bunch of options here. Now there are hundreds of fonts. So to go through this could take some time. So what we're going to do is apply some filters. Now if we look at these here, for example, see this Roboto, there's 12 styles. So if I click on that, I can see there's all sorts of different boldnesses, there's italic, there's quite a range of those that you could use, so which is good. If I go to this variable font here, I can see that there's also a whole bunch of variations that we can use there. If I go over here, I see there's one that's only got the one style, not a particularly pretty font, but if I look at that, that is the only font style that we've got. There's no different boldnesses, there's no italics, there's nothing. So you don't get much variety with this font. So my suggestion would be, instead of going through all of these, I would actually use the filter up the top here, and I would select the number of styles, and you want, say for example, at least 5 styles. Then you get less fonts. The more styles you want, the less you're going to get. So let's say we want 5 minimum. Okay, bit of a tricky slider. So we've decided that this is going to be our heading font, for example. So we look through here, we go, what font looks like the kind of heading I want on my website, my business, etc. So I look through there and I find something that I like. Let's say IBM Plex. That looks pretty cool for me for a particular site. So we would then, if you wanted to, you can have a look at that, just click on it and we'll show you what it looks like at different sizes and different weights, and whether it's italic or not. So it's quite an effective little font, that. So I'm going to keep that one in mind. So what we'll do is we'll head over to the website and see how you would use this, and then we'll come back and we'll choose a body font. So on our website, I'm just going to go into the Elementor page builder with my editor. And we've got a basic heading up here with a button. We've got some text down here which has got a heading 2. I've put a few headings in here so we can see what they look like. And we've got some body copy here which is all on sort of default stuff at the moment. And we've got a button here with some copy in it as well. So Elementor, to get into your default settings for your fonts, head over to the site settings and then go to the global fonts. So by default they have 4 types in there, which is primary, secondary, text and accent. I tend to keep the primary and the secondary generally as a very similar font. The primary and the text as a similar font. The secondary I tend to use for my heading fonts. Accents could be a heading like heading 4 where you want some some spacing between the letters, and you want everything in capital or whatever you want. So let's say I want to use IBM Plex Serif as my heading font. I will go to Elementor and I'll go to secondary, and I would select that and go IBM, and there it is there. I think it was the Plex Serif we're looking at. Let me just double check that. Yes, it is. And I'll set that as a default to 600 for now. And a line height of 1.2 EM. I like to have a little bit extra spacing. It just makes it look a bit nicer. So that's between lines. And there's my heading font. So I'll go back over to my accent and I'll make that the same. Okay, and in here I'm telling you to make everything uppercase and make the font weight 400. So you saw this heading 4 change then. So if I want that bold, I might make it 900. Get a nice bold 800 maybe, 600. Or we want a fancy looking very thin. So it's up to you what you think looks good. Maybe 300 there. There you go. And I've told to make that all uppercase. Bit more line height and some letter spacing between the letters, so you can see as I move that the heading 4 changes. Okay, that doesn't happen by accident. I'll show you where that actually gets set. Now we still need to find a font for our body copy, so let's head over here. I might just grab this lorem ipsum text, for example, just a little bit of that, copy that and stick that in here. And set this down to a smaller font size, say something like that so I can see it. And again, we want to have the filter on so that we've got the number of styles of at least 5. So what kind of body copy do I want for this website? Let's say I want something that's kind of modern but very clean. So I don't want any of the serif stuff on there. We can actually turn that off in here. In here. So we can turn off the serif fonts and we just get the sans serif. So sans serif means it just doesn't have the little flicks and whatnot on the in the ends of things. And let's say I go through here and I want something like what looks good to me here. Let's say I like this very rounded look, so it's called Comforta, Comfortaa. So I'll go back over here and I'll select my primary. I'm going to change that to Comforta. There it is there, and you see that change. It's on a weight of 500 at the moment, so if I make it 300, it's a lot thinner. You see that change everywhere. Make it 100, didn't make much of a difference. 200 made no difference. So it looks like 300 is the break point. 400 makes it a little bolder. 500 is a bit bolder. Go up to 900 is very bold. So let's say we're going to make this 300 for our website. You can see these headings have changed here as well, which we don't want that to be the same as the copy, so I'll show you where that gets set. Oops. So that was my primary. I set to Conforter, and as I said, I normally make the text the same. So I'm going to select that and make that Conforter. And it's pretty much the same. We can change some settings on here if we want, like line height, letter spacing. I'm just going to leave it as this for now. And our accent, we want it to be the same as the IBM Plex, which is the same as our secondary up here. And all we've done is made it uppercase and put some letter spacing on it. So how do we apply these? So now we've got these global fonts defined. Now we head over to our typography. So in the typography, by default, if we don't specify a body font, everything defaults to the basic Elementor defaults, which we have no control over. So what we want to do is in here is we want to tell it what do we want the base body font to be. Now I always set that to text. Okay. And there it is there, and it looks a bit big, but we'll fix that up later. So you notice when we change that, all of these headings change as well. So that is because we haven't specified a different font for the headings. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the heading 1, and we're going to say we actually want the secondary font for heading 1. You see that change? For heading 2, we want the secondary font. For heading 3, we want the secondary font. And for heading 4, we want the accent font. Okay. Now you remember back here, what we did with the accent font is we used the same as the heading font, secondary font, but we just told it to make it all uppercase and put some letter spacing on there. Okay. So now we've got these defined here. We can see that looks a little bit big. So I'm going to go back to my text font here, and I've got that set to 1.2 rem. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller, and you see it changes everywhere. So I'm just going to make that say 0.8. No, it's too small. Make it 1 rem. That looks about a normal sort of a size for fonts. Update that, and back to the editor. Okay, and we'll see what our page looks like. Okay, so here we go. So we've got our heading font there, the body font there, which has also been applied to the menu. It's been applied to buttons as well. We can change that. I don't recommend that you change that because it just makes it inconsistent. But let's say we decide we actually want the buttons to be a bold version of that font. So we edit it again. Go back to our site settings, and this time we're going to look at the button. And for the font typography, we're going to tell it that it is the text font, but we want to modify that, and we want to make that uppercase. Sometimes you've got to reapply these settings, and we want to make it a bit bolder, so maybe make it say 500. It's not very bold, say 700, and we've just changed the button font. So that's the same font as the so it's the same font as this body font up here, or down here, but we've decided that we want it to be uppercase and we want it to be bold. So here we go. So it's uppercase, so it's bold and uppercase, and there's our call to action button. So what's the benefit of doing it this way with Elementor? Let's say we create this website, we're happy with it, but at some point we give it to the customer and they go, don't really like that body font. It's too hard to read, or whatever the reason is. So we go back to Google Fonts, we go, okay, let's find a different body font. they might want this Plex Mono. They might like the idea of that. So Plex Mono's got 14 styles. So let's go back to here, edit the page with Elementor. Back to our site settings, global fonts, and let's say we make that text the IBM Plex Mono, I think it was called. There we go. And we've just changed it to look more like typewriter text. So I would generally change it on the primary as well. This is just the way I work. So it keeps wherever you use the primary font and wherever you use the secondary, the text font the same. But you can have some variation on that. So, for example, on the primary, I might make it a little bit bolder. So I might make that say 500. So my things like menus and that are bolder, but it doesn't affect the body font. Okay, so we've worked through why you use Google Fonts, how to select the Google Fonts, how to filter the fonts to show only the ones that have got 5 or more styles, 5 or more sizes, and how to get a preview of what those fonts would look like. So that's pretty much it, and I hope that makes things easier for you. Thank you.
WPGet. Get found. Real people, real solutions. Call us on 07 3708 1021. Visit us at www.wpget.net.